Your doctor checks your blood pressure at every visit. They check your cholesterol, your heart rate, maybe your blood sugar. But there is one thing happening with your body every single day. Every time you cross a parking lot, walk to your mailbox, or move through your own kitchen, that tells a far more complete story about your health than almost any of those tests. And most doctors never measure it. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to share could genuinely change how you live the rest of your life. If you're 55 or older, drop your age in the comments right now. I want to know exactly who I'm talking to today. Today we are covering 8 things your walking pace reveals about your health. Things that can predict falls, cognitive decline, heart disease, and even how long you will live. And I promise you, the last one on this list is the one that surprises people the most. Number 8. Your walking speed is a vital sign, and most doctors are missing it. Let me start here, because this changes everything. In 2009, physical therapists Fritz and Lusardi formally introduced walking speed, what scientists call gait speed, as the 6th vital sign. Not the 5th, the 6th. Right alongside blood pressure, heart rate, temperature, respiratory rate, and oxygen levels. Why? Because the speed at which you walk captures something that no single blood test can. The simultaneous function of your muscular system, your nervous system, your cardiovascular system, and your brain. All in one measurement. No needles, no machines. Just you, a hallway, and a stopwatch. A 2010 pooled analysis of 9 major studies confirmed that for every 0.1 meters per second decrease in walking speed below a certain threshold, there was a significant increase in falls, hospitalization, and death. Research published in JAMA found that people who walked at 1.0 meters per second or faster consistently outlived what was expected for their age and sex. Margaret, 71, a retired school librarian from Ohio, came in after her annual physical came back completely normal. Blood pressure, fine. Labs, fine. But her daughter had noticed something. She just walks slower than she used to, her daughter said. She used to keep up with me. Now I'm waiting for her. That observation, not any lab result, was what opened the door to finding a problem early. Your pace is talking. The question is whether anyone is listening. Time yourself walking 10 meters, roughly the length of a standard hallway, at your normal, comfortable pace. Divide 10 by the number of seconds it took. Write that number down. That is your baseline. But here is what makes this even more urgent, and number 7 is the reason I want every person over 60 to understand this before their next doctor's visit. Number 7. Your walking pattern can detect brain problems years before diagnosis. The motor circuits that control how you walk are governed by the basal ganglia, the cerebellum, and the brainstem. These are deep, automatic systems. They run your gait the way your lungs run your breathing. But when disease begins quietly degrading those neural pathways, whether it is early Parkinson's, early dementia, or subtle vascular damage, the stride begins to change first. Not the memory, not the balance, the stride. Research has established something striking. Gait speed slows up to 7 years before the clinical onset of dementia. 7 years. During which time, a standard cognitive test might show nothing at all. A landmark 2025 study, the Adewale trial, published in Innovation in Aging, measured gait variability in 87 cognitively normal adults aged 65 to 80, then cross-referenced those measurements against high-resolution MRI brain scans. The finding was sobering. Inconsistency in stride was directly associated with measurable shrinkage in the hippocampus and parahippocampal gyrus, the brain's memory centers. In people who scored perfectly normal on every cognitive test, Robert, 76, a retired engineer from Georgia, had been told his memory was normal for his age for 3 consecutive years. His wife noticed he scuffed his right foot slightly when tired. That asymmetry, combined with a gait speed that had quietly declined 0.15 meters per second over 18 months, was a signal that led to an early diagnosis and early intervention. Pay attention to consistency, not just speed. If your steps feel uneven or a family member notices shuffling when you are tired, write it down and bring it to your doctor. And what happens when you try to walk at the same time? That brings us to something even more revealing. Number 6. The walk and talk test exposes what a brain scan sometimes cannot. Geriatricians call it the dual task test, But you can think of it simply as, can you walk and talk at the same time without slowing down? When walking is automatic and healthy, it barely uses any conscious brain resources. But when neural pathways begin to deteriorate, walking stops being automatic. It starts requiring effort. When you then add a conversation on top of that effort, the brain runs out of bandwidth. There is even a clinical term for what happens next. SWWT. Stops walking when talking. Researchers found that older adults who stop walking when asked a question, who slow to a near standstill or reach for a wall mid-conversation, face a pooled odds ratio for falling of 5.3. That is one of the strongest fall predictors available without any equipment at all. A 2025 study confirmed that stride length during dual-task walking showed broader associations with cognitive decline than walking speed alone, specifically with inhibition and cognitive flexibility. Ask someone you trust to walk with you and ask you questions mid-stride. Does your pace drop noticeably? Do you stop? That observation is clinically meaningful. Bring it to your doctor. This connects directly to what our next number reveals about your risk of falling. Number 5. Slow walking does not protect you from falls. It predicts them. Here is the counterintuitive truth that surprises almost every patient I discuss this with. Walking slowly does not make you safer. It makes you more vulnerable. At a normal walking pace, balance is partly maintained by momentum. When that momentum drops, your automatic postural reflexes lose their mechanical advantage, and the brain must compensate consciously. In older adults, that conscious compensation is itself impaired. Research published in PubMed confirmed that a decline in gait speed over just 12 months was associated with a 13% increased risk of one or more falls and a 44% increased risk of multiple falls. A drop of 0.1 meters per second from your personal baseline is the clinical alarm threshold. And a study of over 16,000 community-dwelling older adults found that slow gait speed alone increased serious fall risk by 38%. When combined with weak grip strength and depressive symptoms, that risk more than doubled. Eleanor, 79, a retired nurse from Alabama, had been careful for 2 years, slowing down deliberately, holding walls, avoiding uneven surfaces. She thought she was being wise. When she came in after her second fall in 6 months, her gait speed was 0.61 meters per second. She had been cautious, but the caution had become the trap. Do not aim to walk slowly to be safe. Aim to walk with intention. Chair-based exercises and heel raises can begin rebuilding the ankle strength that makes confident walking possible. What that slowness is doing to your heart and your muscles is our next point, and it is one most people never hear. Number 4. Your walking pace predicts heart disease and muscle loss, independently. The cardiovascular signal embedded in walking speed is one of the most underappreciated findings in modern geriatric medicine. A large cohort study using wrist-worn sensors from the UK Biobank tracked nearly 39,000 participants for cardiovascular death over 9 years. The finding: slow real-world walking speed was a stronger predictor of cardiovascular death than step count alone. Among older adults already diagnosed with heart disease, those walking at 0.5 meters per second or below faced a 3-fold increased risk of all-cause mortality compared to those walking above 1.0 meters per second. The muscle story is inseparable from this. Sarcopenia, the progressive loss of muscle mass and strength, affects up to 50% of adults aged 80 and older. Muscle loss slows walking. Reduced walking further reduces muscle use. That disuse accelerates further atrophy. Muscle mass declines approximately 40% between age 25 and age 80, and physical inactivity accelerates every stage of that loss. The NIH now formally embeds gait speed in the diagnostic criteria for sarcopenia, alongside grip strength and muscle mass. Ask your doctor about grip strength testing at your next visit. Combine this with your gait speed baseline. These two numbers give a far more complete picture of your cardiovascular and musculoskeletal health than either one alone. But there is something else your slowing gait may be quietly signaling, something even more invisible. Number 3. A slowdown you cannot explain may mean hidden inflammation or vascular disease. When a patient's gait speed drops without an obvious orthopedic reason, no new joint pain, no recent illness, The body may be advertising a biochemical process happening out of sight, specifically systemic inflammation or peripheral artery disease. A longitudinal study of 333 adults aged 70 and older found that higher baseline levels of interleukin-6, a key inflammatory marker, were directly associated with slower gait speed and a faster rate of decline going forward. A systematic review of 21 studies confirmed that TNF-alpha, CRP, and IL-6 all contribute to gait impairment. On the vascular side, peripheral artery disease, PAD, is massively underdiagnosed. Estimates suggest 20 to 59% of all confirmed PAD patients report no leg pain at all. Yet a 2024 study found that every PAD patient showed significantly abnormal gait biomechanics, shorter step length, altered cadence, even when completely pain-free. The stride was telling the story the patient was not. Victor, 73, a retired construction foreman from Mississippi, came in after noticing he was arriving at his car winded and slower than he used to. He attributed it to age. His gait speed had declined 0.18 meters per second over 14 months. Blood work revealed elevated CRP and IL-6. Further testing identified early peripheral artery disease. Treatment began. His walking speed and his risk profile changed with it. If your gait speed has declined noticeably without explanation, ask your doctor specifically about inflammatory markers, CRP, IL-6, and ankle brachial index testing for PAD. These are simple, inexpensive tests that primary care visits do not always include. Has a doctor ever dismissed a concern you raised because your standard test looked fine, even though you knew something had changed? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one. Number 2, how to test yourself at home, and 3 visual red flags that demand attention. You do not need a clinic for this. Here is exactly how it works. Mark off 14 meters in a straight hallway or path. The first 2 meters and last 2 meters are buffer zones. Start the stopwatch only when your foot crosses the 2-meter mark, and stop it at the 12-meter mark. This gives you a clean 10-meter window of natural, settled walking pace. Do 2 trials and average them. Divide 10 by your average time in seconds. A 2024 Harvard Medical School study confirmed that a smartphone stopwatch correlates with gold standard clinical video assessment at R equals 0.94. Reference benchmarks. For men in their 70s, the average comfortable speed is approximately 1.26 meters per second. In their 80s and 90s, approximately 0.97 meters per second. Anything below 1.0 warrants attention. Below 0.8 is the clinical threshold for elevated fall and disability risk. 3 visual red flags. Watch for these regardless of what the stopwatch says. Red flag 1. Arm swing that differs noticeably between left and right. Parkinson's patients show an arm swing asymmetry of 13.9% compared to 5.1% in healthy controls. Asymmetry, not just reduced swing, is the signal. If one arm barely moves while the other swings naturally, report it. Red flag 2. A scuffing, shuffling, or dragging sound. Feet that scrape the floor signal reduced foot clearance, which links to foot drop, peripheral neuropathy, Parkinson's disease, or normal pressure hydrocephalus, a condition that is often treatable with surgery. A new shuffling sound combined with a recent fall is a referral trigger. Red flag 3. Stopping or slowing significantly when talking. SWWT carries a pooled odds ratio for falling of 5.3. If you consistently reach for a wall or fall silent mid-stride during conversation, that is not a habit. That is neurology. Test yourself monthly. Same hallway, same shoes, same time of day. A drop of 0.1 meters per second from your baseline, confirmed across 2 tests 1 month apart, is the threshold to bring to your doctor. Number 1, you can reverse gait aging, and the research is clear on exactly how. Here is the part I want you to hold on to. Everything we have covered today, the cognitive signals, the cardiovascular risk, the fall predictions, the inflammatory markers, none of it is a sentence. It is information. And information is power if you use it. The research now confirms that most of what we call gait aging, the shorter stride, the slower pace, the reduced arm swing, is reversible. A 2025 wearable-assisted trial showed that a 12-week multi-component program produced significant improvements in gait speed, chair stand performance, and overall physical function in frail older adults compared to controls who changed nothing. 3 things, backed by strong evidence. Fast sit-to-stands. Studies showed 20 to 40% improvement in chair stand performance alongside gait speed increases of 0.08 to 0.15 meters per second, enough to cross the clinical significance threshold. Lower slowly, rise as fast as safely possible. Speed in the upward phase recruits the fast twitch muscle fibers that walking depends on. Heel raises. Ankle plantar flexor power drives a propulsive push-off of every step. Weak calves are one of the most underappreciated contributors to slow gait in older adults. Start bilateral, both feet, then progress to single leg as capacity allows. Walking to music at 100 beats per minute. A 2026 study found that music cues improved walking speed, stride length, and arm movement, outperforming metronome cues. The mechanism. External rhythm redirects neural circuits from impaired pathways to intact ones, lifting performance in anyone whose natural pace has drifted below their potential. Several free smartphone apps allow precise BPM adjustment, and perhaps the most important finding, exercise programs that rebuild walking capacity also measurably reduce fear of falling, which is itself one of the strongest drivers of the slow, shuffling gait that increases fall risk. Rebuilding the physical capacity and rebuilding the confidence happen together. Has a doctor ever told you to just slow down and be careful, when what you really needed was a plan to get stronger? Drop your answer in the comments below. I want to know. Let me bring this all together for you. Your walking pace is not just a number. It is a window into your brain, your heart, your muscles, your vascular system, and your nervous system, all at once, in a single measurement that costs nothing and requires no appointment. A gait speed below 0.8 meters per second predicts disability. Gait variability predicts cognitive decline years before diagnosis. A drop of 0.1 meters per second from your personal baseline is your clinical alarm. And 3 visual patterns, asymmetric arm swing, foot scuffing, stopping when talking, each carry independent significance that a standard physical will miss. I want you to hear this from me directly. None of this is meant to frighten you. Every single risk we have discussed today is one that can be measured, monitored, and meaningfully addressed. A hallway, a stopwatch, 3 exercises, and the right conversation with your doctor. That is where this begins. You did not come this far to slow down. The information you have right now is what most people your age will never have. Use it. Share this with someone you love who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below with your age and the one thing from today that made you think differently. I read every single one. Subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.